Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we welcome Jon Schemmel and his family back to Vermilion. You'll hear from Jon in just a second. We will take questions from the media. But first, let's bring up the president of USD, Sheila Gestring.
Thank you. First of all, welcome, and thank you all for attending today's press conference for USD's 14th Director of Athletics. Before I begin on the announcement, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Corey Jenkins. Where's Corey? I saw him walking around here, right there. Corey served as our interim director since September and just did an absolutely phenomenal job. And I want to extend my gratitude as well as that of the entire university for all of your leadership. You certainly have proven yourself a critical part of the athletics leadership team, so thank you. So USD began its national search back in about October, and we worked with a firm called Korn Ferry, and after a highly successful, highly competitive national search, we found our 14th Director of Athletics, Jon Schemmel. Jon is a familiar face to the University of South Dakota, as he once served as our Senior Associate Athletic Director for Development. That was from 2012 to 2017, and during that time, Jon was involved in strategic planning. He was a sport administrator for both men's and women's golf, and he oversaw the development activities, including Howling Pack, Major Gifts, capital project fundraising, and more. While each element of that fundraising was successful, most notably was Jon's role in raising more than $50 million for the new arena, track, and soccer complex. I cannot even begin to imagine what USD athletics would look like without that critically important capital improvement plan. Jon continued his success in athletic fundraising and revenue growth at Miami of Ohio in Oxford, Ohio, as their Senior Athletic Director and Assistant Vice President for Development. And then most recently has been with Dakota State, where he has raised over $190 million since starting that role in 2021, with over $75 million of that specific to athletics facilities enhancement. And with that, Jon came highly recommended by boards, by supervisors, by current and former colleagues. And I would like each one of you to please join me in welcoming home at USD's 14th Athletic Director, Jon Schemmel.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being here. President Gestring, thank you so much for this opportunity. I can tell you, I had the opportunity to work with President Gestring in my previous role when I was here several years ago. And we got along pretty quickly back then too. We saw the world about the same color, and so getting involved in this process and knowing and hearing her vision, support and commitment for athletics at the University of South Dakota is incredibly exciting, and I think everybody here knows that. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I also just want to thank and recognize a few other people. Jenna McLaughlin with Korn Ferry. She was great and instrumental throughout this process, communicated very, very well to all of us. The search committee, thank you. I will say that was a pretty surreal moment when I was on a Zoom and there's you're a conference room, so you can just envision yourself being on a 12-foot jumbo screen with your head just bearing down on 12 people, and you know half the room, right? But everybody's handling it very professionally, as we all should. And I got to give Ryan Taylor a little shout out because he asked the last question and was on that committee, but he just said he was the only one that kind of broke and was just like, "Hey, Jon, it's Ryan." So I appreciated that, and it broke the tension. Maybe I wish you would have asked the first question on the front end. But everyone else involved with the search as well, having a lunch the next day with donors and President Gestring to kind of end things up, it felt like home again. So that conversation with donors I was very familiar with. Really by the end of it, we had donors sitting there kind of debating about the craziness of college athletics, which we all know we're dealing with today. But it was really fun to sit there and listen, and it was, should we be doing NIL, collectives versus facilities, and one person's here and others here. And honestly, it was really entertaining, I think, but more than anything, it was just reassuring that how much passion there is for this place. Not that I ever doubted it, but it was evident from day one. I also want to thank Corey Jenkins. Incredibly excited to work with Corey. Didn't think this is where I get emotional. But I will say, and it's no secret, obviously, that Corey was going after this. So our first call was very good. Thank you. I also want to thank President Griffiths and everybody at DSU for the last 3 years. The team we had there is incredibly special. President Griffiths and her vision is bold and bright, and we've seen tremendous success over the last 3 years, in part because of that vision and everybody working there, but certainly the team that we had there. I want to thank my family, my friends, the community, Mom, Dad, Justin. This is where I knew I'd get emotional. And obviously Heidi and Jay. You guys are my world. A couple other people I do want to recognize is David Saylor and Jude Killey. You two have been instrumental in my career. Thank you. All right, on to the madness of the NCAA and the work at hand. Obviously, we all know that the world of college athletics is chaotic at best right now. I said this throughout this process, and I've continued to say it, meeting with coaches and everybody today. That is exciting to me, right? Where there is chaos, there is opportunity. And I think USD is incredibly well positioned for that. And I look forward to working with everybody here to see that through. We're going to set a vision that is going to be bold, and it's going to be bright. We're going to put together a plan, probably in the range of a 5 to 10 year plan that's going to focus on a lot of different areas. But the goal of that plan is to set a vision and a mission to go along with our brand, that every single person in the department, our student athletes, our coaches, this university can point to and say, this is what Coyote Athletics stands for, right? Every single day, this is what we do, and this is who we are. And everything we do will drive into that vision. And that plan will be a 5 to 10 year plan that tries to set us up for the next 20, 30 years of success here in Division I athletics. Obviously, in the chaos that we have, we all know with the transition and everything that's going on, those are not the answers that anybody has today. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend to have them. My commitment to you and to everyone at this university and in this community, and certainly our staff, is we will focus on being the best South Dakota. We will focus on being our best selves, whatever that means. And we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we are just reacting to what's around us. We're putting ourselves in a position that we're doing what is best for the University of South Dakota and our student athletes every single day. Everything we focus on will be about the holistic student experience, right? We've all heard for a while it was facilities, then it was nutrition, travel, all of these different things. Mental health, of course. All of these things still resonate, but part of our charge and part of our responsibility is to teach them how to do that beyond these walls, right? Not just to provide the service while they're here. And we will focus on that every single day. We'll focus on donor and fan experience. We want to bring you in and connect with you and entertain you while you're here. Athletics is just that. It's entertainment. And we want people to come and have a great experience at our games. And that starts with our general student body. We cannot do this without the general student body. And I want them to know and understand how much they are a part of what we do here, and how much they mean to us and how much they matter. And hopefully I'll be able to get on campus and see a lot of them very soon. That goes the same for faculty and for staff. One thing I'll forever be grateful for in my time at Dakota State was not working directly in athletics and being a part of the cabinet and the leadership team and seeing the university operate from a whole different perspective and have a much better understanding as to what athletics' role is in that, when it's time for athletics to lead, when it's time for athletics to follow, and when it's time for athletics to serve. And I think that's a big part of it. And then obviously the community of Vermilion, being a part of that, engaging with that community, and we are incredibly excited to get back into this community as well. You look at fan experience, facilities, endowments, obviously the Alston funding, NIL, collectives, annual giving, all of these things, some are new and some are old, all are true, right? And I go back to that conversation in that debate that the donors were having in the interview, and all I kept saying is both things have to be true, right? It can't be one or the other. It has to be and, it can't be or, right? But we have to do it keeping in mind with who we are and within our resources, right? If we go up and try to compete with a Big Ten school, we're going to lose that race, right? And we need to know that and understand that. But we need to focus on all of those things. All of those things must be true, right? The debate of whether student athletes should be paid, making money, that debate is over now. For what it's worth, I think it's great, just so everyone knows where I stand on it. But that debate is over now, right? It's happening. The chaos around us will get organized. It'll settle down a little bit. But those are the opportunities that we're gonna jump on, because ultimately it's to enhance the student athlete experience, and really at the end of the day, isn't that what this is all about? The last thing I'll talk about, and I think how we go about accomplishing these goals, is talking about culture and really building one. I am a big believer in culture. Most of the books I read are about culture, leadership, that type of thing. Culture to me starts and ends with people. That's it. People and relationships, right? We will get, and we have a lot of the right people on board, we will get the right people here and going together. This university and the athletic department have achieved a lot. And obviously just look at the most recent football success, but obviously we can go back over the years and look at all the different achievements for all our different programs. We just simply need to build on that success, honor that past, be in the present, and prepare for excellence in the future, and really just look to modernize our operations. We're going to find people that love what we do, right? I remember a question during the process was, how do you go about finding coaches and what do you look for? That's the first thing I said. Like, who are the people that love ball, that love student athletes? That's the first thing, right? We're all here for that reason. You have to love what we do to do this. We're going to serve each other and the communities we're in, and above all, we're going to serve our student athletes. And we'll keep the student athlete and the holistic student athlete experience at the heart of every decision that we make. And if we do that, we'll be in great shape. We'll build a culture with trust and integrity. We'll do everything for the right reason, keeping our student athletes at heart. We are going to hammer the process. We are going to outwork people. Some of you remember me working here before. I haven't changed that much. I'm a little older, a little less hair, and a little more of it's gray. But not much has changed by that. And so we are going to get after the process. We'll be transparent. I'm transparent to a fault. I told our entire staff today, when you're in that room and you're at a table and there's some kind of conversation going on and everybody in the room is thinking, we're all thinking the same thing here. Yeah, I'm the guy that says it, right? I'm the guy that says it. Accountability, we will hold each other accountable and we will respect one another in the process of doing it. And finally, we will empower one another. And I talked with our senior staff today. I fully expect my entire tenure here to not be in the office much. Certainly in the first few months, it's going to be that way. Thankfully, with Corey's leadership, with the rest of the senior staff and a lot of others, and many people that I just don't know that well yet, they have months of doing this now, right? And I told them today, really with their actions, not a whole lot is going to change, right? We're not coming in and blowing something up and rebuilding it. We're just coming in and maybe just changing the direction and fine-tuning things here and there throughout the process. So with that, really, we're just looking to grow our current relationships and build our new ones and bring people in. And as I said before, it'll all start and end with our students and our student athletes. Thank you very much, and go Yotes.
Jon made it very clear how much he likes suits, so I decided to get him a different piece of gear.
That's awesome.
Probably here.
Thank you, guys.
So now we'll open it up for any questions any media or others might have.
Hi, John.
Hi,
Jay
Jay.
Elson from
Thank you
Midco
for breaking
Sports,
the
in
tension
case you
quickly,
forgot. Priority one. I mean, in the chaos that is the landscape of college athletics, what's priority one here?
Yeah, for me, priority one for me, at least, is to get out and spend a lot of time with our coaches and our staff, but also very quickly on campus and around the community. I was supposed to be heading to Arizona next week, but I'm not now. But I would imagine February is, I'm not going to be here much. I think just getting out, talking to the donors, our fans, students on campus, and just kind of listening to what their experience has been and everything that we're doing. That's always going to be priority number one for me. And so I know I have a goal to try to meet with every head coach one-on-one by the end of this month, and we'll go from there. And so, you know, I think like everyone, the needs are vast and they're all over the place. I think getting a really good understanding as to what are the priorities to our coaches that are consistent, what are priorities that donors will support, what are priorities that align with the vision and the goals of this campus, and kind of building that vision. But that's all going to be a lot of listening here for the first few months. So that's my top priority.
Given your previous experience here and the relationships that you mentioned that you already have established, was this always a job that you kind of looked at as one that, hey, if I could get to that seat, I'd
Yeah.
really like to do it there?
Yeah, I think, you know, at some point you just kind of assume it won't happen. And so we had an opportunity to stay in college athletics when we left Miami, and we chose Dakota State, and I think we chose that for all the right reasons. And it wasn't necessarily to say, hey, we're gonna be in a position to make a move on this if and when it were to come open. I think we had kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say we'd given up on it. It just wasn't anything we had talked about. But I knew in my time here how special this was. And you know, we always think we're ready. I probably thought I was ready when I was 30 and 35 and all of that. But I'm really, you know, happy that it's come around this way, because my perspective on this job is very different. My perspective on family and South Dakota and all of that is all very different. And so, you know, I think it put us in a position to take this for all the right reasons, with the right people, right time, everything. And so I don't know that it was ever something I would just say you had your eye on, because we all tend to fall in line to, hey, I'm going to be a D1 AD and whatever that takes. And but you know, this was the right place at the right time. I mean, this really is for us that institution and that community that has been home. You know, I mean, Heidi and I got married when we lived here. Jameson was born here. We went through a lot here together, personally and professionally, good and bad. We lived a lifetime in 6 years. And so, you know, I think this was always where home was for us, for sure.
Jason Muller from KTIV in Sioux City. Just wondering, kind of building off that, was USD kind of the key to pull you back into working directly in athletics?
Yeah, I think my life is athletics. I've been around this since I was 6. My dad worked at Kansas State in 1989, and I talked a lot about this today, but you know, that was when they hired Bill Snyder, when they were considering dropping football at Kansas State, which is a real thing. And And so athletics has been my entire life. I was a 3-sport student athlete all the way through high school, played college baseball at a Big Ten school, at a Division II school, played minor league baseball, which you have far less resources than either one of the college experiences when you're playing minor league baseball. And so that was it. So I always knew athletics was part of my life. Part of what made Dakota State a little bit easier was, as President Gestring mentioned, such a large part of our campaign was athletic driven. And so that made that transition a little bit easier. But I think it became at some point in my life and in our career and our journey, it became less about it's going to be this job or this title at this place, and more about where do we feel home is, and where do we feel like we can make a really big impact. And that's not just in the athletic department, but at the university, in the community, all of those types of things. And so I guess I probably knew in the back of my head athletics would be back in my future at some point, but we were ready to be in Madison and at Dakota State for a long, long time. So, I mean, one thing with that, you know, I mentioned this earlier, but when I sat down, and obviously Heidi and I had talked a lot about this, and we sat down at dinner, it was finally time to tell Jameson, and I looked at him dead in the eye and just say, bud, you know, we're going to move. And so we started talking about it, and I looked at him and I said, bud, like, this is where you're going to high school, right? Like, this is it. This is home. And without missing a beat, and kind of one of those moments when you realize that's your son, he looks at me dead in the eye and he goes, you said that last time, Daddy. So, so it made me laugh. But I will say, you know, this is a very different circumstance. And so, you know, it's athletics has always been a part of it for sure. And, you know, I felt very, very comfortable. Walking into the building yesterday was surreal. That was probably the most surreal moment yesterday, just walking in. Only I told a couple people I was even coming in, so nobody even had a heads up. And that was strangely wonderful.
Mr. Schemmel, Eric Bean, Yankton, President Cone. Just working with David Herbster, how instrumental was his impact just on your career?
Yeah, I think, you know, coming over with David Saylor, who left shortly after he hired me, you know, coming in, I think David in the interim and was handling a lot, didn't have a deputy, and he really empowered me to kind of go, and not that I had proven myself as a good relationship builder and revenue generator, but that was my first opportunity ever to be on the development side. And he gave me a lot of responsibility with that, and I'll always be thankful for that. And I think my career and my development is much different today than it would have been without him and because of him. So I'll always be appreciative of that from him.
What's one thing you like about the culture here at USD, and maybe one thing you want to build upon?
Yeah, I think, I think people here that are here and or chose to come back here or chose to stay here are here, and they don't necessarily say it's this one thing. They just come back to this place is different. This place is special. And I think when you feel that, you know it, right? And I felt that. I mean, I loved my time in Ohio and being with David and Jude and so many people out there, but it didn't feel like it was our home, right? It was Ohio. It was different. We didn't have a ton of family around. And so I think a lot of people, you know, talk about that. You know, I think from a culture standpoint, you know, and I've talked about this all day today. It's going to be different. I'm a different human being. And so different strengths than my predecessor, different personality. So just in that, it's going to be different. You know, I think one of the things that will be a little bit different as we move forward, and as a unit is talking about making sure I'm in a position to be able to be gone, right? And uniquely, that means they are going to be empowered to do what they need to do. But as we talked about today, in a lot of ways, that means things aren't going to change that much from the way they've been the last few months. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yep. And then just one more thing for me, just the current coaching staff here at South Dakota, just what impressed you about just the personalities across the board there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you talk about reasons to come back. President Gestring and her vision in support of athletics. But you look at the coaches across the board here. We have just an excellent blend of people that have been here a long time, that are incredibly established, incredibly successful, and people that have been around, right, and gone other places. And again, they come back, and it's not necessarily for one reason other than it's just that place for them. And so the coaches that we have on staff have been and will continue to be incredibly successful. And really, at the end of the day, I'm just going to try to do what I can to help support them and make their lives a little bit better.
Hi, Mr. Schemmel. Anya Joseph, Kelland Sports. I was wondering, maybe you answered this already, but this must be sort of like a full circle moment for you coming back to USD. So what are some of the things that you've learned in your journey to help you establish your vision for this program?
Yeah, it is very full circle. And, you know, I think for me, leaving and coming back, and then even kind of getting away from athletics and directly and coming back, I think like the whole statement of everything happens for a reason is the difficult one for me, right? And whether it's because of tragedy in your life or anything like that, it's just been a statement that I've always struggled with. I think mainly because it's maybe you have less control over your destiny and stuff like that, and maybe I just have a hard time with that. I think over the last several years and going through this process, you kind of feel, you know, like timing matters, relationships obviously matter, but I think above all for me, perspective matters. And I don't think those are things that I thought much about 5-6 years ago. It was a rat race to try to be an AD, be a young AD, all, you know, the right goals, but for all the wrong reasons, probably is the easiest way to say that. You know, and I think when we chose to go to Dakota State, as opposed to, we had an opportunity to go continue our career in athletics in a Power 5 school and kind of do the thing that most people in my position would do, and we chose to go to Dakota State. And that was the first time in my career I probably did something where we made a decision for all the right reasons, right? To make an impact, to find a home, it was the right for our family, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's probably what I've learned more than anything.
Hey, John. John Thayer with the Coyote Sports Network. This is an interesting time in college athletics, obviously, with NIL and conference realignment. When you look at things like conference realignment, how do you try to assert yourself into that and allow input for a conference or conferences, in our case, to kind of get that stability that everyone's looking for?
Yeah. Sustainability, right, is a really a word that you're not hearing a lot of today. I think in all of that, again, the best thing that I can do is know that what we are today, it's just not going to be the same in 5 years, and maybe less, right? It's almost impossible to imagine a scenario where it's exactly the same, right? In preparing for that, and certainly, and I don't want anyone to think interviewing in this or a reason for taking it or not has anything to do with FCS or FBS and all that. I know that talk is out there. We're well aware of it, but it's really not about that. It's about knowing who you are and becoming the best version of yourself. Now, we need to be prepared for any and every scenario, right? That is my responsibility. And I think setting that vision and those goals and kind of knowing who we are and what we're working for, obviously having financial goals alongside that to support us, just to put us in a position that no matter what happens around us, we're not just reacting to it, right? We are dictating our own decision and what's best for the University of South Dakota, not just reacting to something that happened in the environment around us. And I think that's a big charge, because the reality of it is we have to accept the fact that those conversations are happening, and whether it has anything to do with us or even us knowing about it, our name is coming up, good, bad, or indifferent, same thing. with all the other schools. And so, I think you look around, I'm very fortunate and lucky to have family that works in this, that are pretty easy to reach out to, and talk to a lot of people too, but that's really kind of what this is all about, right? It's what are you hearing? What do you think? I mean, nobody has much else besides that. I think the only thing we know is that there's going to be 60, 70, 80 schools that are going to break. But now, it's even walked back a little bit that now it might just be football. And so, I think that everyone will kind of respond once that happens. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I just find it fascinating. So, I mean, it's a really easy way to never be bored at work. Because you hear one thing and this school is going to this league today, and then you wake up and they didn't and 3 other schools did. I mean, it's that kind of madness right now. So, but to me, that's a pretty easy way to get out of bed every day.
All right, this one's for the fans and staff everywhere. How do you feel about mirrored scheduling?
I think I have a pretty good beat on how everybody around here feels. So I can't remember if we were mirrored before I left or not. I don't either. I don't know. Whatever we were doing then worked. So, but yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't experienced it, but I've heard a lot about it.
John, President Gestring, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for being here. Look forward to seeing you tonight at the men's basketball game. Go Yotes.
Thank you.